Hello and welcome to Agents of Nonprofit. My name is Alexander Lapa, and I'm here to speak with everyday superheroes helping nonprofits. Joining me today is Dacia Moore to talk about leadership coaching and, more importantly, mental health. Dacia, welcome to the show.
Oh, Alex, thank you for having me. It's a topic that we don't talk enough about in the nonprofit space is leadership mental health, executive director, development director, mental health. Those are the two positions that I'm familiar with that have a lot of pressure. I mean, there are other positions that have a lot of pressure, but certainly those two, in terms of leadership, have a great deal of pressure, and just the expectations, the self expectations of how things should be, how things are going, what all the things that you have to do, the multiple priorities. So, the mental health and mental well being is not a squishy topic. Children or young people who are just entering the world. It is paramount in sustaining the nonprofit that you so desperately, or not desperately, but so deeply believe in. And if you take care of yourself, when you take care of yourself, you are a better leader. But there are things that we have to do, Alex. It doesn't happen. It doesn't just fall on us. Mental well-being is a choice that we have to make daily, and it is in our daily choices that either move us toward well-being or away from it.
I totally agree, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. But as we get started, I was hoping if you could share your superhero origin story.
Oh, I am a superhero. My wisdom is my superpower because I have been through many things. My story has evolved. I always knew I wanted to help people from the time I was in high school, but I did not know what to do. And there are no counselors or psychologists, psychiatrists in my family, so I had no idea about the counseling field. So I actually went into retail, which is not. I mean, the assistant buying is it's numbers, not helping at all. I did that for a few years. I went into the hotel industry, helping people, and did lots of conventions. Rose to the national sales level, but that is a job that takes your entire life. And then went into education and did that for a while. And because I was getting my master's degree in counseling, because in education, they value education. So you want to get your advanced degrees if you plan on getting promoted. And that's what I wanted to be, is actually a college president. And I went and got my master's in counseling and went to do my clinicals. And I was given an offer I couldn't refuse. And I fell into the field of helping. At that time, it was helping disruptive, angry students who got kicked out of regular school. And it was very rewarding. And that's when I found my niche of helping in the nonprofit world. It was a nonprofit residential treatment center. And so I worked in that a long time. I was invited to apply for executive director positions, but to be honest, the board scared me because I have seen boards go awry. I have seen rogue board members ruin the career of executive directors, and I thought, hell no, I don't, I don't want to deal with the board. But eventually, I decided, you know what, if I want to take that next level in leadership, I need to figure out how to deal with the board. And I was given an opportunity and led a nonprofit. Actually, was a mental health counseling agency nonprofit. I led that for 8 years. I had a great board. Had a great board. It didn't start out that way, but that is quite a varied path. I didn't have a straight path. I had a zigzag path, and I find that a lot of people in nonprofit leadership have a zigzaggy path. So I don't think I'm a unicorn, but and all of those things helped me in my leadership role um, when I was the executive director.
I like how you started the conversation by saying mental health is a choice. Just from personal experience, I get the sense that in general the conversations are becoming louder. that people are realizing, hey, wait a minute, we actually need to take care of our mental health. And it is as important as, if not more important, actually, than, I mean, not more importantly, but it's as important as physical health. And 'cause I think, at least when I'm my generation, when you were younger, it's like, be a man, suck it up. But at this point, whether you're a man or woman, I think there's just a more, I hope there is, but I get the sense there is a greater awareness about mental health, how important things are. And just to start the conversation, the part that I realized how important it is and how impactful it can be was a stressful situation that happened to me years and years ago. It happened to both my brother and myself, and we had to go to court about it. And there was a whole, and the stress from that situation, when court was finished, my brother ended up putting himself in the hospital, and the doctor looked at him and saying, like, "What? Where in Africa did you go? What kind of rare disease did you pick up somewhere?" Like, he was just blistering in his eye, and it was all just because of stress. And the fact that stress such a literal manifestation physically, and he was there for a week, was unbelievable. And it definitely shook my awareness of, okay, this is something that we have to pay attention to, because it will come out one way or another in more negative ways than positive ways. So I'm curious to know, how do you see in the general landscape of things about mental health as it is today in the nonprofit world? Do you also get the sense that we're moving toward a better direction, more awareness, or is still a lot of education required?
I think that the topic of mental health and mental wellness is well received by most people, but I also believe that most people, especially those in leadership, believe it's for someone else. It's for my employees, it's for my staff, it's for my board, and not necessarily for me. But I have been intrigued the last 3 or 4 years by the high performance of Olympic athletes and athletes in the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, the WNBA. I'm intrigued by how do they manage their mental well-being at such a high level with so much pressure. And so it is about handling pressure, and it's about your mindset. So when we talk about mental health, people, woo woo, and, it's for my staff. And, if she's crying or if he's stressed out, that's what we're talking about. But it is also a mindset of what are you thinking about? How are you thinking about it? And how can you think about it in a way that doesn't cause you undue distress? I think of Patrick Mahomes. I'm a Kansas City fan. I enjoy watching the Chiefs, and when you see Patrick Mahomes in a stressful situation, he comes through. He throws the ball to the right receiver and gets the touchdown. Now, of course, there are varied outcomes after all of that, but how does one high perform in and under an extreme amount of pressure? I've been intrigued by that because executive directors are under a high degree of pressure, and it comes from managing your mindset. It comes from managing your thinking. It comes from the strategies that you use to manage yourself. And that is what I want to convey to anybody who will listen to me. That's why I wrote my book, From Stuck to Unstoppable, because I find that many executive directors get stuck in perfectionism, they get stuck in anxiety, they get stuck in overwhelm, and it comes out in this it could come out in a harsh way where you're very demanding on your staff. It could come out, especially if it's perfectionism, it could come out in overworking and, emailing staff at 10 p.m. because your mind won't shut off. But as you said with your brother, if you don't manage your mental health well, it will come out in physical symptoms because our mind and our body are connected. We were created that way, and I'm a woman of Christian faith, so I believe in a creator. We were created as an integrated being. So when we are under an extreme amount of stress, if we don't manage it well, it will manifest in physical symptoms, and it will also manifest in unhealthy behavior: over drinking, overspending, overeating, having sex and promiscuity. It comes out because we all seek pleasure and we all want to avoid pain. So everybody does something. Now, what the athletes do, they have specialists who work with them to train them on how to strengthen their mindset. And that is mental health and moving toward mental wellness. Now, not all of them are successful, but these successful athletes that you do see have learned how to do these strategies, these behaviors. It's almost like they have psychological behaviors and routines the same way they have their practice routine. And it's fundamental to mental well-being.
So these mental routines, I like that idea actually. Like we have a physical routine, people have morning routines, the coffee, waking up, this and this. They got gym routines, they got work routines. I haven't heard about mental routines very often. Can you give some examples of what that would be like, at least positive ones, that would be helpful for nonprofit executives?
Absolutely. And this is what I call, it's under the category of personal leadership. We talk a lot about leadership, and people think of leadership as a professional place where people are, you are leading, you're the captain of the ship, and people are following you. But there is something called personal leadership, which does have to do with your daily routines. So, as an example, one positive mental routine that I do every morning. Well, I have several things that I do. I read my Bible, I listen to a meditation. And the first thing I do after I get my cup of coffee is to read my affirmations. And my affirmations are positive statements where you are setting your mental intention for the day. They're positive statements also as reminders of who you are and who you are becoming, who you are trying to become. One of my affirmations is I am helping people becoming their best self, and I'm becoming my best self. And that is true. I am becoming my best self. I am a lot better than I used to be. And I am helping other people become their best self. But that is an affirmation. So in the morning, I have note cards that I read to set my intention for the day of who I am and what I believe about myself and what I believe about my life and where I am headed. There are affirmations for development directors. There are affirmations you can say about your skill level. For executive directors, there are affirmations that you can say about the mission of your organization and how you are successfully moving toward the achievement of my mission. And you can fill in the blanks with specificity, but the morning routine is before I do anything, I set my intention and I repeat it, because sometimes it doesn't feel like I am progressing. It doesn't feel like I am the person that I'm trying to become. But our feelings are not facts. I tell my clients this all the time. Feelings are not facts. Feelings give you information. And one of the mental awareness strategies that most counselors, coaches, and coaches to high level performers, including entertainers, okay? So I am intrigued by athletes because my grandson is an athlete, but entertainers have the same, high level entertainers have the same kind of person in their circle who helps them get their mind right, because we all have fears and anxieties. Nobody is exempt from fear and anxiety in this life. So that's an example of a mental routine that can be very helpful, is writing on note cards who you are becoming. They need to be positive. They need to be affirming, and they are in line with your deepest desire of why you are working, why you are ministering at this nonprofit, because we know that nonprofit executive directors have skill sets that could be more highly paid in the corporate arena. Okay, so you are at a nonprofit because you believe in what that nonprofit is doing. You believe in the work and you are willing to take less compensation in order to achieve the mission. You are mission driven. But that mission drivenness also includes passion, which can turn into overwhelm and anxiety if it's not managed.
I love the idea of meditation and affirmation. So I also meditate on a daily basis. It's one of these things you just add to your routine, not expecting to get a very a quick turnaround. It's a long-term strategy, but doing 20, 25 minutes a day over a period of months. And I've definitely noticed a calmness and a more awareness, a perception of the present moment, a greater perception of the current moment, like a lot of different benefits. And I know a lot of CEOs and really top companies in the world do meditation for that very reason. It doesn't have to be as spiritual or as non-spiritual as you want. It's the practice of meditation itself that counts, and that has a huge impact. Small incremental changes that you can add to that routine to make it that better. And I also love the affirmation part because I agree, setting intentions, reminding yourself who you are. It could sound a little woo-woo, but it's extremely powerful, and it's people underestimate, I think, how powerful it can be. And you're just reminding, like you said, it's like doing push-ups in your brain, right? It's telling yourself, it's doing these reps, getting them in, focusing your ideas and your attentions, and it's like doing push-ups for your brain. It will over time result in a more better, healthier mental state.
Well, Alex, let me just say it before I forget it, and pardon me for interrupting you. But I love what you're saying about push-ups, and yeah, because people do in leadership positions, I find discount and it's woo-woo. It's for other people, which is part of the problem with a lot of nonprofit executives. But if you think about push-ups, if you start doing 5 push-ups a day, you're not going to see a big result in a week. But over 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to see a result and you're going to be able to do 10 push ups. And then over time, 20. So just because it's a small thing doesn't mean that it is doesn't have great value or meaning. And that's exactly what we're talking about with mental wellness. It's small things. I love the way that you just put that. It's small things that the sky is not going to open or you're not going to get this great revelation, but it is the consistency of doing small things every day that help you to become a better person.
I totally agree. I mean, I got it from the book Atomic Habits,
Yeah.
how improving yourself, and you can define what that means, improving yourself, but a 1% change per day over the course of the year is like massive. It has a cumulative effect that people seem to underestimate. But at 1%, whatever that 1% means to you, whether it's one more push-up or whatever it might, can really, I mean, it does add up. It's just math. So don't discount the small things that add up over time. And there's always a stickiness factor where I know it takes a certain amount of time to build a new habit. Could be weeks or months. I don't remember offhand. But the idea is that you have to stick through that uncomfortable newness of it because you're not used to doing in this particular habit. But at one moment in time, it will become, it's like going to the gym. Right? At one point, you will start saying, craving the gym and doing those push-ups because it's just, you see the benefit and it's a snowball effect or a circle effect. Jumping into the intention for a second, though, I like that again, setting that because that to me is setting clarity, setting vision, it's setting a goal, setting a purpose. And I would call that as priming yourself. And the classic example of it is if you were to buy a yellow car, when you start driving that yellow car, you all of a sudden will notice a lot more cars on the road are yellow than you remember it to be. And it's, of course, not because the number of cars on the roads changed, it's because you've primed yourself to notice yellow cars. So that in the same way that you can set those intentions, if you say, I am a good person, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be successful, you're actually opening up the pathway for it. And you will start noticing more things that are in line with that goal than things that are not. And that's what allows you to. Starting with a mindset is such an important step it's only the first step, but it's such an important step because it determines your direction. Are you going north, east, south, or west? And the minute you determine that direction, every other decision that comes along your path, it's much easier to know whether you should pursue it or not because it will be in line with your path or not.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the other thing that it does is it helps you to prioritize. So, what I mean by that is if you take the time, see, because a lot of executive directors, they get out of bed, and leaders, because I work with other leaders other than nonprofit EDs, but leaders are doers. They have a list, they have a agenda, and they are A-type personalities to bam bam bam, let's get it done. So they get out of the bed, do their wash up in the bathroom, and then they are go. It's on, it's on. So taking the time to stop and slow down to meditate and rehearse your affirmations is a practice that will help you learn how to slow yourself down and manage yourself and your thinking better or well, because it's in the calmness that good decisions and the best decisions are made, not in the hurry, not in the anxiety, not in the whirling of the mind, but it is in the calmness, the peacefulness. So as you get accustomed, as you take and make the sacrifice to say, okay, 25 minutes in the morning, I heard Alex and this lady, Miss D or Dacia, talking about it. I'm going to try it for a month. That is prioritizing your day, but also it's helping you to get into the habit of slowing your mind down and managing your mind instead of being pushed by our agenda or being pushed by the energy to do. Because one thing, and you asked in one of your questions that you sent me, there are many things that I wish executive directors would do better. But one of the things I wish that helped me the most was giving myself permission to pause during the day after the voices and all the demandingness and all of the things and all of the phone calls and all of the things to do, because there's never enough time to do all the things that you need to do. But if and when you pause throughout the day, you are resetting your brain, you are managing yourself differently, and you are bringing that anxiety down to where you can have clarity. And that clarity is not only for making decisions, but it also is an example to your staff of good leadership, of solid leadership, giving yourself permission to be human, that you say, listen, I'm going to step outside and take a walk around the complex. I'll be back. And allowing yourself to de-escalate the pressure is a great habit. And it starts with giving yourself permission in the morning to do the meditation.
A footnote about the meditation, I mentioned 25 minutes, but I worked my way up. Right? I started at 10 minutes, got the push-ups in, and then I increased to 25. At one point I'll be at 30, but I just want to make sure it's clear that I didn't start at 25. So don't feel like that's a huge starting point. You start at 10 or even 5 if you have
Sure,
to work way up.
you just start. That's the thing, is to get started.
Hey, Alex here. I want to take a brief moment and thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode so far, please consider sharing it with someone who would also benefit from its insights. It's these kinds of referrals that really help the show grow. You can also show your support by making a small donation. I don't do corporate sponsorships or product placements, so I rely on your support to keep the show going. You can visit my website, agentsofnonprofit.com, and click Support Us in the top menu. Thank you kindly. In terms of the pausing part, I think this is also something I wanted to underline, because there is a reason why, I don't know if it happens to you, but it happens to me, is we have these great ideas when we're in the shower or we're just falling asleep. is because we are in moments of calmness, right? It's the moments of calmness that allows our brain to relax, and different parts of the brain start working and analyzing data and um, making observations that we maybe would not have made, we probably wouldn't have made when we're actively using it. So having that calmness, that still moment, is actually helpful for us. We're not meant to be on 24/7. We can't. Like it just will. And we stimulate ourselves, unfortunately, artificially with social media and other kinds of stimulus. But that's actually one reason why it's unhealthy, is that it doesn't give us that sense of calmness, of peace, of just doing nothing for a little bit to allow our brains to relax and enjoy that space. And who knows, come up with all kinds of creative ideas in that space.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So our society at this time, we're an information society now, and we have access to information 24/7. And so the temptation is, and we live in a world where productivity is idolized, right? You must always be productive. What is the outcome? Are you achieving your goals and checking off the things? And so productivity is the idea that you are always doing something to get somewhere, right? But you can give yourself spaces. I mean, so there, I live in Houston, Texas, and there's there are road signs that say don't race or rage. And people are driving here, they drive so fast. They're always racing. And that's what we often do in our workplace, is within our minds we're racing and we're trying to get it all done, when actually the key is calmness and thinking things through and doing the most important things, right? It's not doing all the things, it's doing the most important things. And one of the tips that I wanted to be sure to share with your audience, especially for those executive directors listening. And one of my mentors told me, Dacia, as an executive director, there are many things that you want to do. There are tasks that you get joy out of doing, and that there are many things that need to be done. But there are only a few things that only you can do. And those things that only you can do as the leader, that's the first thing. Those are the first things that you need to do. Everything else can be delegated or can be put down further down on the list. And that helped me, Alex, because um, there are a handful of things that only the executive director can do. But what we end up doing is the things that we like to do. Right? And some of those things that we like to do or that we are doing could be delegated or could wait until the next day. But doing the thing every day after you finish your meditation, you look at your list and then you say, okay, what are the things on this list that only I can do? And then you circle them. And that is how you start your day, because those are the things that need to get done by you.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of automation and outsourcing to be able to do that, to focus on the time that only things you can do. And if someone can do what you need to do at 80% of the same level of efficiency or output, then just you might as well outsource it. There's no point you doing it yourself, so that you can focus on the things that's only you can do. Or I totally believe in that. What I also like about is that a comment you made earlier in the pre-conversation about calmness in the metaphor you use about page margins. I was wondering if you could share with our listeners, how does the word margins apply and how do you use it in your metaphors?
Absolutely. And this, it has been so helpful to me. So if you look at a book that you're reading, just open any book that you're reading, you will see that there is white space at the top, at the bottom, and in the left and right margin. And that white space is so that your eyes will not get overwhelmed with all of the words that are on the page. So I'm looking at my book right now, and I'm on page 30. And I have lines for people. It's a workbook, so for people to write in. But the idea of margin time is to give yourself mentally the margin time, and this is analogous to the pausing that is important to do. The pausing yourself, allowing yourself to, and giving yourself permission to take a pause throughout the day is like giving yourself margin time. Because if you look at a book, let's say War and Peace, and I haven't looked at that book in years, but if any book has words from top to bottom, left to right, with no white space, you would look at that and say, that is too much. I can't read, read this book. That's too many words. We need margin in our lives. We need margin in our mental health, in our mental space, so that we can adequately assess what's going on and make the best decision possible. And that's why we have white space and margins in our books, in our reports. And that's why you need margin in your life. It's giving yourself that permission to have nothing at certain times where you can, again, de escalate and de stress.
I love this analogy because it applies to or can be used more than just paper books. By me being a techie, we learn from user experience, UX principles, that if you have a website, or if you have a really wide screen, for example, and if you have text that goes from left to right on the screen, it becomes harder to read than if you have wider margins and you have the same line. Instead of like one line that's super long, you've got 3 or 4 lines, but the margins are much bigger, so that it's 3 lines instead of one line. That's actually easier to read. It takes less cognitive load to read those 3 lines that are have greater margins than it does to read the one line that's super long, and you can extrapolate from there as well. But that to me is the same concept. It's not overwhelming ourselves. It's reducing that cognitive load to give ourselves that breath to be able to read, digest, process all this information better and faster.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you are on, and I have some leaders and I try to help them to, um, it, cognitively, they say, yeah, yeah, they see it. Okay, sure, sure. But they don't do it. They don't do it. And they get up at 6 a.m. and they're on go. They're on, they have the pedal to the metal at 70 miles an hour mentally until 11 p.m. And I am a former, I did that for a while early in my career. This is before I was an executive director. I was in, I had started my own business, and when you have your own business, if you don't go out and sell, you don't eat. I mean, you got to get a new contractor. You have to keep fishing, keep hunting every day. And like your brother, I was under so much stress. I had physical symptoms. I developed hives around my abdomen. And one day I looked in the mirror. I'm like, what the heck? What is that? It was from stress. It was from stress. So there is wisdom, and that I'm in the fourth quarter of my life. You don't need to know how old I am, but I have lived a long time. And I have a special category called seasoned senior citizen, right? I reject I mean, I'm seasoned. I know some stuff. I've been through some things. And it is wisdom, Alex, to slow down and manage your life differently because, number one, it will never all get done. You'll never have everything in the box nice and neat. It's just not going to happen. It's like laundry. You are never finished with laundry. There's always more. If you're alive, there's always more. So understanding that it's never all going to get done. So what are the most important things to do? And Alex, the most important things are not always work related. They could be spouse related, they could be child related. Okay, because as I am looking at and planning for the end of my life, because it's going to happen to me and it's going to happen to you, we want to invest in all the things and each of the things that are important to us, not just the one thing. Because when you are on your deathbed, who is going to be there with you? Okay. Yes, you want to have a great career and do your absolute best. I am all for for excellence and being as excellent as I can be. But that also means trying to be the best mother that I can be, trying to be the best spouse that I can be, trying to be the best grandmother, and leave a legacy, not only professionally, but personally. And that is really wisdom. So sometimes we might have to just accept that not everything is going to get done. But I need to spend time in this arena in order to have a well-rounded life.
Playing the devil's advocate for a second, I think I can imagine some people trying to push back against that in the sense of there's just so much to do. Sometimes it feels like so little time to do it. You know, there's just so much to do. You know, and it's is there another layer of advice you could offer besides saying, look, it's just not going to happen. It's laundry, which is a fantastic analogy, by the way. It's just laundry. Just accept it, go with it. Or there may be some tactics you can start the conversation to chip away at the idea to say, look, it's just not going to happen. Like it's okay. Forgive yourself because there's always a pressure, right, to do more with less, especially in the nonprofit space. This day in 2025, things are really weird in the world for nonprofits. There's a lot of stress, and just it's okay to start the conversation by saying, "Don't think about it too much" or "Don't do too much." But tactically, is there something you can offer or mention that would be helpful to just to get that ball rolling?
Sure, sure, sure. And I understand the pushback because your listeners are probably type A's and they're hard and heavy, but I will say this, and I am all for being intentional and for everything that you do, not just for your work life. But there is some value in balance, and with the so I'm thinking about some of the nonprofit EDs that I'm working with right now in a coaching situation. One of them had their funding cut by 65%. I mean, talk about pressure, you know, because people's livelihoods are on the line. She is going to have to let some people go. And that is a hard, hard place to be, which is why it's even more important to have that balance, because the stress of having to make cuts, some of which are staff that you like and who do a good job, and you don't want to have to give them this message, weighs heavy on you as a person, which is why we're talking about mental health, because we cannot discount the weight of the job, right? It's a weighty job. Again, it's the passion to not only do the mission, but to make all the balls and plates stay in the air. That takes a lot of energy. So we are not robots, okay? So it's going to come out in some way. So I'm not suggesting that we be mediocre. That's not what I'm communicating at all. But what I am saying is that we be intentional and ambitious, maybe for short periods of time, but also to give ourselves a release valve so that you can manage and balance out all of that positive, intentional energy that you are giving to the workplace. And I hope I'm communicating that well, because if you look at like Olympic athletes, they spend years intensely training for a 4 or 3 minute event, right? So are they intensely training 24/7, 365? They are not. They are not. They are training for intense periods of time, and then they back up and have downtime. And that's what I'm suggesting.
In addition to the calmness, the meditation, the affirmations, there's one other activity that I think can be beneficial. I want to get your take on it, and that's expressing gratitude. I know that gratitude, you know, writing down what things you're grateful for can definitely have a benefit on your happiness level. And I'm curious to know if that has a part to play, or what kind of part does that have to play with mental health and leaders in nonprofits?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, Alex, because gratitude is one of the ways that we can give ourselves margin time and that we can give ourselves a pressure release valve. Because in leadership, we are frequently looking at what is missing. What do I need? What don't I have? What funding do I need to get? What funder do I need to call? What uh, council person do I need to have coffee with? So we are constantly looking at the gaps because we're trying to fill the gaps, which then can put us in a very anxious, overwhelmed, pessimistic framework. Gratitude is the other side of the coin where we look at and reflect on how far we have come and to be grateful for what we do have. Maybe it's the small grant that came in. Maybe it's it could be a lot of things, but expressing and making time for gratitude helps you to acknowledge and recognize the progress that you have already made, which can be a great encouragement to say, you know what? I'm maybe not as far as I want to be, but I am much further now than I used to be. So turning that thinking to gratitude of what your staff has done, being grateful for the staff that you have, making sure that the right people are on the bus in the right seats, that's huge. And that could be part of the stress factor of an ED is that, they're trying to get the right people and maybe they don't have the right people. Well, that's a different conversation, but being grateful for the people that you have on the bus in the right seats who are pulling with you, and also for the direction that you have given, that you have done well, right? You're probably working on this is the time of year that many people are looking at their strategic plan for next year, okay? Which is appropriate. That is always a good thing to do. But we also want to look at, and we do these annual reports on, okay, what did we do this past year? But taking time to celebrate that, okay, is an important piece to gratitude.
In keeping with the superhero theme of the show, I was curious to know if you had some kind of magic wand or a superpower that could change something in this mental health space today, what would it be?
If I had a magic wand, I would wave it over the large foundations and the large nonprofits like United Way and other foundations that have connections with funders. And I would wave my magic wand over them so that they would have a program in place for small and medium-sized nonprofits to connect the EDs of those small and medium nonprofits with the funders who have funding, with the individuals who have family foundations, with the individuals who are wealthy, who have means to contribute. Because what I have seen in my experience is there is a gap, especially in the grassroots small nonprofit world, where they don't know or have relationships with these large funders. So a lot of their time is spent in developing relationships. If my magic wand worked as well as I hope it would, these large funders and wealthy individuals would have programs where you would meet the funder, and it would just be for those small and medium nonprofits under $5 million annual budget, $5 million and less, and maybe even having a special program for those who are $1 million and less, and have a meet the funder meet and greet. So those development directors and EDs could begin to develop relationships with people who could possibly be grantors and funders for their mission. That's what I would do.
Awesome. Dacia, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for doing what you do. I was curious if you could share with people, because obviously we've just scratched the surface of this topic. If you could share with our audience how they can reach out to you online if they have additional questions or follow-up concerns.
I would love to connect with those of you who resonate with our conversation today. My e-newsletter, and I would invite you to go to sign up for that. That is the best way to stay in touch with me because I send out e-newsletter that deals with personal leadership twice a month. It will always have a resource or a book or an assessment or a quiz to help you improve your personal leadership and to move toward more positive mental wellness. So that website is SW Snippet, and SW stands for Second Wind. That's the name of my private practice, Second Wind. So it's SW Snippet, SNIPPET, because every newsletter has a snippet of information that will help you to become a better leader personally and professionally. So swsnippet.com. And I invite you to go to that website, sign up, and I will be in touch with you I do videos, I do quarterly workshops. I'm doing one very, very soon. And these quarterly workshops, I give information to help you to become better. So that is the energy that I am living in right now, is passing along this information. And I am so grateful to be on this show to begin to do that. So swsnippet.com.
Again, thank you so much, Dacia, for joining me today, and thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's it for today. I'm Alexander Lapa, and I hope you join me again in the next Agents of Nonprofit.